All right, this is part 3 of our Before Trilogy review, and today we watched Before Midnight, which was, again, we're following the Before Trilogy. We saw Before Sunrise, we saw Before Sunset, and this is, just like Sunset, 10 years after the last film. And in the last film, I hope you guys have been watching these movies, Jesse...
And hopefully you're not jumping in right now.
Yeah, I don't want you to jump in right now.
This like, honestly, if this is your first time listening to this and you decide to jump in...
Go back.
Go back two. But in the last film, Jesse essentially reunites with Celine, his long-lost love, after 10 years. And,
they've had kids, they've had life.
Well, they've had their own separate lives, and they come together, and then, we see, or we wonder, did Jesse stay with Celine? Did he end up living his life?
Spoiler alerts, again.
Yeah. And we're here in Before Midnight, and the answer is yes. He fucking stayed, and he had 2 twins, 2 beautiful girls with Celine, and they are now in Greece having this vacation.
And the movie starts off with Jesse leaving his boy Henry to the airport because he has to go back to the U.S. to be with his stepmom. No, to be his mom.
Yes,
sorry.
yes. But anyways, we're 4 guys, one film. Let's start. Let's do it.
Let's talk about it. I don't like how we fucking started. Right off the bat, I'm like, holy shit, this motherfucker stayed. And like
you didn't want him to stay?
Well, no, I did. But the thing is, you got to think about the repercussions.
I know. That's all we were talking about last episode.
So immediately, like, that one, he fucking cheated on his wife.
Yeah.
2, he stayed, and probably like the sorry ass apology that he had, or like whatever he had to say to her, was fucking brutal.
You don't think he called her like Nick said he should do? Called her, say, hey babe,
no,
it's
right,
over,
right,
and then went to Celine.
He walked outside. Called her on the payphone.
He did it right.
Like, hey, I need to break up with you, and then went inside.
But he did that post-nut. That was the problem. I said pre-nut.
That's more likely than not the case. But
don't tell my son we split up.
But that also kind of sets up the film. How you realize his ex-wife has so much resentment towards him. The entire film they talk about how much she hates him. She hates Celine, and like she's using their son Henry to anger him and get to him.
But also, like that kind of was like something that he already had said in the previous movie, because she said like there was this like unspoken like kind of hate that they had between each other already.
I don't think it was hate. I think it was just him being unsatisfied, and this kind of begs the question, like we only saw his side of the story of his marriage. Maybe she was happy with him, and she just wasn't enough for whatever he wanted. And then now we're here.
That's also that's absolutely true. There's 3 sides to every fucking truth, and so
But I feel like this ties in with like this film, because clearly the last 2 films were a lot more hopeful, a lot more romantic.
Right.
Like in a sense they were happier films, and this one just felt really real, because the climax of the film was an argument.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what an argument it was, man.
Yeah, it was so real.
They brought up everything from 10 years ago to fucking present, and they brought in feminist ideals and fucking trying to like
abandonment,
tragedies.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, we're 4 guys here. We've all experienced a fight like this with our partners.
More than one, my friend.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean,
dude, the taekwondo that Jesse was doing in the first part of the argument was phenomenal.
That shit was some Wing Chun. He was directing shit.
He was winning that first fight, and then the second one.
Master of gaslighting. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Celine,
oh my god. I mean, I think in the first, whatever segment of the fight, he definitely brought up some really good points.
How about before we get to the fight, we talk about how the movie started.
Yeah, let's take it back. Let's take it back.
I'm not even want to jump right into the nitty-gritty, bro.
Which is great, because like the movie also starts off with little bickering that they have between each other, because Jesse's feeling that guilt that he has to leave his boy at the airport, and then she's like, "Do you do this every fucking time? Like, stop being a fucking scandaloso fool."
I don't know if she was like scandaloso.
She was. She's like, "Fool, you do this every time."
But I don't think she was. I don't think she was telling him from a perspective of like you're a piece. It's more of like from a perspective.
Well, no, but she kind of was, because at the end of the fight, he's like, "Dude, like it's not worth it for us to fucking just see him on the weekends, and that's not enough time for us to justify moving our whole life."
Well, but he said you're right to that.
Yeah.
Though. So he's like, you are, and she even said, she's like, see, this time I'm being the logical person. We're getting to the fight. Yeah. Why would we not jump to the climax?
I think he disagreed, but he just said that to like.
I fully believe.
I don't think so.
I'll get to the arguments, like strategies.
I mean, like, all right, we'll get to that when we get to that. But I disagree. I don't think he meant that.
I
can't wait.
I do think that he did a lot of the I could see it in myself, because sometimes I just like I'm just still gonna agree with the other person,
exactly,
because it's not. a big enough.
The fight isn't worth it.
It's not worth it,
No,
and you know, like
not.
you know, I just came out here to just talk about my emotions and not like.
Yeah, exactly. I that's what I think too. That Jesse was just throwing out whatever he was feeling, and Celine was just getting really defensive because I think in a way she feels guilty that that they fell in love and he had to leave his.
Well, not only that,
she said that. She was very honest. Like, dude, I feel guilty that you've had to like do all this shit, and
like, do you regret moving to Paris and stuff
Mhm.
like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
To the point of all of you guys, I think Jesse's in a very difficult situation, trying to be a father and not being there. And also trying to be in this relationship with Celine when he has these two daughters with him. So he basically has two families when he should really be trying to combine them as one. Well, he's juggling and he's failing.
But as the movie progresses, I don't feel like he's trying. He's just whining and bitching and
he
moaning.
Doesn't have the opportunity.
Well, this is just one day.
Yeah.
We're only seeing one night of their lives, you know.
Yeah.
He flew him out to Paris to spend, who knows
summer?
how long?
Yeah.
A whole summer.
Oh no, they're in Greece.
Okay, well,
They were
I'm
in
sorry.
Greece for 60
He
days.
flew him out to go see him for a whole summer.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Well,
When he
no-
can't bring him to
Yeah,
to live with him, or
you know what? It's the same. You know, I can speak a little bit of experience because my dad took me everywhere. But at the end of the day, like if he didn't have those pivotal conversations of just him being open to hear me out, then what the fuck was the whole point of him taking me like Disneyland, Universal Studios, like whatever it may be? If at the end of the day you're not having that like one-to-one conversation, and the problem with Jesse is that he has this ideal version of what he wants his life to be, and he wants to achieve it. We see it in the second movie where he's like, I really want to take care of my boy Hank. You see it in the third movie where he's just like, I'm going to stick to this one path, the one way that I know, and I don't want to just hear out, like, apparently it's not really affecting Hank because, somebody's like, dude, like, he's a great kid. Like, just fucking let him have a fucking conversation. Like,
he seems like a chill kid.
Yeah, like, have a conversation with him. He probably understands what you're going through and your mom's going through, and, like, he just doesn't want to make conflict between both of you guys and just have a talk with him. But Jesse's like, yo, I want you to do piano. I want you to do soccer. I want you to do all this other stuff when maybe that's not even his interest. Yeah. It's like, did fucking Jesse do that growing up when he fucking writes books? I doubt it.
Well, another thing too, I think I feel like Jesse had a really good relationship with his dad from what I picked up in the last two films. Like his dad is the one that lent him the the $2,000 for him to go see Celine when she wasn't there.
But the thing is
he had that trust.
But the thing that his dad did that he's not doing is hearing him out.
Okay, so wait, are you saying that Jesse's not a good father from a lack of trying or because of the situational thing? I think it's strictly situational.
I don't think it's situational. I think it's not that he's not, and I don't even think he's not a good father. I think Jesse's problem is, all three movies, we're not even going to argue the fact that they're philosophical, kind of arrogant twats to some extent.
Oh, yeah.
And we love them and they're great characters, and that's their flaw. Is that they overthink life and they don't allow themselves, and they think it from a perspective of even when they're trying to tell themselves that they shouldn't, that they're like, oh, I shouldn't stop thinking about all the things I'm not learning in life and just focus on the fact that I always have a hunger for learning about things.
And then like you always see those moments where Jesse and Celine, there's characters that like, this is how we see like a human nature. This is exactly. They'll bring up some random philosopher, or they're like, this is how things should happen and stuff like that. They never
they apply that to his life,
and they never just let the moment happen and like just try to. They're never present. They feel omnipresent while they're in their own conversation.
Yeah, they're always comparing, and
that's where Hank he's struggling because he's like, he's like, Dad, I don't care if you come during a recital. I don't want you to necessarily watch me play soccer. I just want to hang out.
Again, he is trying in the wrong direction. I think we've all done that as individuals.
Absolutely.
We're trying to do it, but like we don't put ourselves outside the situation and see, okay, what is this kid asking me? It's like I don't need you to be there for most of the important moments. I just need to know that you're going to be there.
I feel like George, Nick, and I, we probably understand because we have younger brothers, but those kids, like they just want to chill out with us. Bro, they don't want anything crazy.
I treat my little brother almost like a son because I look at him and he's like, there's such a fucking big age gap, and then sometimes I'm hanging out with him and I'm like, what do you want to do? And then he's kind of like nothing, like, you want to play some Switch? And then like just little things like that you appreciate so much. He literally looks forward to it when I'm there home, like, and I could spend time like that. Well, even if, like Isaac said, just the most mundane fucking
Nick said that, by the way.
Oh, sorry, Nick.
Yeah. I'm giving you credit. Yeah,
but hey, this time listen to Nick, not like last time.
And
this is
the problem about Jesse. Again, like, he's always over idealizing situations, which is beautiful when you're like single and you're like in your 20s and like early 30s when you can still do that shit. But like, it's time for him to just like really stop being an asshole,
Mm-hmm.
like stop being a prick, and listen to what your family's asking of you. And and what they're asking is, I don't think is crazy.
Okay, I agree with you, Gator. I think we're on the same page now. I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah.
However, in his current situation, Jesse, right? Do you think he's able to do those things without it implementing and like him like taking away from his current family that he has with Celine and his twins?
To 100%, because look,
She complains about how much he travels and goes out. Like for him to be able to go do that with him in the U.S., that would take a lot.
No, but that's separate. That's completely separate.
No, it's not, because it affects them directly.
Can you
sorry.
Can you let me finish?
Right.
Chill the fuck out.
I love the
Say your point.
passion.
Okay.
Yeah, we're arguing just like in the movie.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, I'm a suck a titty.
Okay, no, but here I think, they even placed it a little bit on in the movie. If you have like the right technology, you can still have those bonding moments. Even if he's like 8 or 10 hours away, he could put up a fucking Skype call. This guy is
Bro, even in the 1800s, you could write a letter.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just saying,
Messenger
with a
pigeon.
bird.
Here's my point, and it's quick and simple. Is at the end of the day, he is not trying enough. He's trying in the wrong direction. He is trying really hard. He puts in effort.
So what the fuck?
Cares.
So exactly what I said.
No, but I don't think I'm reiterating.
Would that be enough? Would that be enough for Henry?
I think
it
Henry,
might not be. It might not be, but
People
it
are
also
complicated.
But he's now Celine's point. I think, like in my opinion, George, from even just hearing you in the movie, you're being a little hard on her, but I get it, dude. I trust me. The first time I felt a lot like you, but rewatching it, what I'm seeing is it's like what she's trying to say is, at some point you look yourself in the mirror and you're like, are you making this about you or are you making it about him?
Hank doesn't want to go back in time and try to fix things. He just wants a person he can talk to as a father.
He's just moving forward without really thinking about it.
He has a cell phone and he's like, if Jesse was such a good father, and I think realistically we all have had parents that have been absent.
Flawed.
They've been flawed and they've been absent because they've had to work. Unfortunately, we didn't have like the richest parents. That they had a typical 9 to 5.
Our parents are just people.
They're just people, and sometimes like, dude, like I honestly don't wish to see my dad. And it's like, honestly, if I had that like ability, hey, have that like deep conversation with him when I needed to, I think it wouldn't have changed my life that I've had with my father.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for all of us, especially in that situation where, we only saw one parent at a time and shit. So they might as well have been divorced to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like
Getting deep.
So, and
Wait, I'm like, I gotta see both of mine.
that's different, George. You're special.
But I want to get back to the movie a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, we're out because especially I think that some of these conversations will resurface as we kind of get into the order of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked a lot about what he must have been feeling and like kind of parts of the early conversations that they were having in the car ride home. He's talking to Celine about the guilt he's starting to feel. Then after all of that, they arrive at their little villa. They're with Patrick and his guests over there, and they're playing soccer. The women, very stereotypically, of course, but they're cooking and getting the food ready,
making the salads
that he eats like a pig.
But there's George mentioned it, and I want you to say what you saw at the dinner table with all these people, what they all represented.
No, yeah, I think. There's a correlation with every single couple at that dinner table where it really shows their relationship, how it's progressed. So it's like from their past lives when they were young, youthful, optimistic, whatever it was.
Virile.
Yeah, and then the present, them obviously, and the future. So
and there was another couple same age as them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was Anna and Achilles.
And they, I feel like they bickered playfully.
Achilles was the younger couple,
but they were
that's what he's
obviously
saying,
it was joking.
He's talking about
and they were happier from what.
Wait, are you talking about the married couple or
the
married couple?
Oh,
Yeah, I
sorry.
guess. So
that one was Stephanos.
No, yeah. So Alexis has a point. They were bickering, and it almost seemed like on the surface they were like, oh, like they're kind of happy, whatever. But it's like realistic. You see how they're like kind of
little
nitpicking at one
but
another.
I feel like
and you're like, oh,
that's almost where like even with
that's
that,
them.
yeah. Well, she said she's like, we're negotiating, right? She didn't say we're fighting, we're negotiating. It's like it's all flirtatious. It's all
but there's even a scene where she says she's like, oh, I feel like you're trying to colonize me. And then,
but I think that's all joking though.
Yeah.
No, I know, but it's like with every joke, there's some truth to it.
I do agree with that.
It's just like
I do agree with that.
I think even though they're at the same part of their lives, like both of those couples,
I was gonna argue that too.
I think they're at different stages of their life because I feel like those guys have had kids for much longer and have already got through these humps where they're like, these guys are like preteens.
Well, I don't even know those couples have had kids at all. I don't know. I don't think any of those guys were necessarily their kids. I don't know if
they did, because there's like the reason we got you the hotel room is so we can watch the kids and our kids at the same time.
No, I think they were just watching their kids, right?
No, they were.
Wasn't there other kids there?
Yeah.
Like,
there were, but I'm not sure if they're much older. I think, but I do agree with you. I think they're at different stages. I think that Stephanos and his wife Ariadne, they had a chance to have this revelation of like, this is how we're gonna talk about, like, we're gonna air our bullshit. And it's like, I've seen people where they use a safe word, where they're like, this is the word that's like don't fucking bullshit me, just tell me how you feel, and don't fluff it, and I'll just listen. And so like they can air it as a joke, and if anything, it leads to like flirtatiousness, where they're like, don't worry, I colonize you back, you know, or this is just a negotiation, even though I have a knife.
And I think this is something I feel like that same couple, you know, Ariadne
and Stephanos,
Stephanos, they understood where they were at in their relationship, because I feel like
they understood their limits. And when Celine and Jesse,
and they were like, they were using their kids as essentially like as a shield for both of them, not to really interfere with their own personal issues that as the bigger conversation happened, they just never had time to talk it out and really work through those emotions. And they saw like, you know what, like, no, you guys are gonna go to that villa, you guys have to go to that villa because you guys have to figure something out. They see that tension, and I think,
of course,
and we all saw that tension. And you know, even when I think when
Celine aired the dirty laundry,
that wasn't necessary. Like,
I want to say,
I definitely did notice that the difference between the two.
He took it from
like you said. No, that couple was kind of like playful and everything, but they weren't like completely full blown like putting him on
Celine.
the spot on their dime.
It was,
you know, like Celine did that to Jesse, and she was kind of like, "Oh, this is what he wants me to be, a dumb housewife," and then put on a whole act. And you can see how Jesse
got upset.
Yeah, she put on a whole act in front of everybody, and
which was kind of sexy.
Like,
oh yeah,
right.
But like it was like, you know, the other couple was doing a lot of above the surface jabs that, like, you know what, they probably like it was okay to hear that, but like when Celine and Jesse did their own little, like, where they aired out their own dirty laundry like that, I think that was like,
it was different.
It was different.
It wasn't at their, like, the other couple, it wasn't at their partner's expense. When Celine did it, it was, I feel like it was at their expense.
And I think that's why it was important when the older people interjected about
about their experiences.
I'm like, dude, you guys, it essentially came down to like, stop with your bullshit, man. Like,
well, I think.
Oh, sorry.
No, you know what? You haven't had a chance to say something.
Okay. Well, I just want to talk about the older people because they had different experiences with their own relationships. The older man said that with his wife, like, they didn't have that, like, oh man, like you're my partner, you're the love of my life. They had their own separate lives, and then after that they'd come together and live their own lives. But they were never one to one. Versus the older woman, she talked about her, you know, deceased husband and how much she missed him, and like clearly there was romance there.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes to show, like,
it could go either way.
It can go either way. It really isn't one formula, one way to go.
And they both, when they were talking about their experiences, it felt very endearing to hear, because for them they was just the pinnacle. They both missed each other's partners, and they were like, that I was so happy. Like, retrospectively looking back, they're trying to tell this advice to, like, the Celine,
the younger. I mean, they're in their 40s, but they're still a lot younger.
Well, yeah, think about it. They've only been technically together for 10 years.
Yeah, actually, I want to pause here and I want to ask you guys, and especially George, because you know it's your first time seeing this. But is this kind of where you expected the film to go? Is this where you thought the third movie would be?
As a realist, yes, because it's like, I mean, obviously you want them to end up together and happy and like make things work, but this is not that type of movie. And like in reality, they depicted relationships very well from the first one to the second one till now. So I this is what I was expecting, but at the same time it hit so hard that I was just like frustrated, but the same,
you would
at
not
the same
stop
time
commenting as
I could not. I know I was being a little annoying, not gonna lie, but like dude, guys, I just could. I had to verbalize how I was feeling.
This movie's all about fucking hearing the talk, and you're like, I gotta talk. Like,
I'm like, guys, come on, give me some feedback. You guys have watched this 3 times. You guys don't need to see it again.
George is like, yep, Jesse's right. And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, Celine's right. Oh no, Jesse fucked up.
No, it was a constant back and forth, because it's like they both had really good points, and then you realize that's not what the movie's about. It's about how like relationships are, and it's not right or wrong. It's like how do you deal with the situation, especially when it's someone that you're trying to build a family with and you love.
It's about compromise, right?
It's literally what Jesse said. It's like love isn't perfect. So
I think in the first time I watched it, I expected them not to have kids, because I saw Celine as a really big feminist, and she was like, I'm not gonna compromise my own life to bring in children. And you kind of see that, you still see that side
Even
of her.
the way she says it at the end, like, she's like, I haven't been the same since I had the children.
Yeah, so I'm a little like, after, I get it, it's real life, and you once a woman like has that, like, going through that process of, it's harder to get away from it.
Postpartum depression is real. Like,
no,
my mom works.
Not even that. Like, when you hold a child for 9 months, especially two, like, you just grow so attached to them as and it gets harder to let go.
Well, I think the bigger issue is that she is a woman, like we've all seen. She's very independent. She's very strong-willed. She is who she is, and now that she's a mom, she's realized that she's given up so much of herself. And clearly, being a mother is great. It's fantastic, right? But at the same time, you lose yourself, and I bet she doesn't regret it, but she wishes that she could have still had her own
but I think that's
individuality.
Also that's kind of her fault too. Because Jesse pointed out, I was like, dude, like, nobody's asked you to stop doing this. Like, you can,
but
it's
what
hard.
I was gonna say.
No, it's hard, but at the same time,
I think Alexis is right on this though. Like, she gave up so much of herself.
I think maybe if Jesse was more helpful as a husband, as a father, it would have been better, because she can't focus on herself because she's focusing on him and the two girls.
Yeah, it's crazy because Jesse threw that in her face. Like, I think you should fucking worry more about, like,
and I was like, fuck you, asshole.
No,
you take care of us too.
She's like, well, I can't because I'm too focused on fucking caring about everybody else.
100%. And I think that what I wanted to add to that, because in my opinion, we talk about like how George put it perfectly. Like, this ending might have not been what I was anticipating from the third movie, my first watch. It genuinely, like, it just seemed so romantic. I was like, I have to imagine it's gonna be like The Notebook at the end where they die together, like in their fucking sleep and shit like that.
Spoilers, dude.
I was like, that. My bad. We're gonna watch that one later. Don't worry.
I haven't seen The Notebook. I'm not. I refuse to.
But anyway,
we'll all cry, dude.
Yeah, we'll all cry together. But
I don't know if I'd like it.
This is my point: is that this movie really shows that their love, their connection, and the spark that they share was a strong start to their relationship, but it's also been a bit of a flaw, if you ask me, with developing some of the more fundamental elements in a relationship. Like, the next scene that we really talk about is the walk to the hotel, and they start to explore each other. They start to realize and talk and connect, and like, oh my gosh, like, when's the last time we didn't have to hear footsteps behind us and someone screaming at us and picking up after things, right? And then they start to ask each other about how they feel about life, start to communicate, and then start to realize that's where the little things unravel, where it's like, number one, we haven't really dated each other in our relationship since the kids. Number two is, what have I done for myself? What have you done to allow me to be me? Like you guys put it out. It's like, at the end of the day, Ethan Hawke's character, in this case, he really was trying to push, like, I want you to be your own woman. I want you to not lose that sense of identity. But what is he actually doing to facilitate that in her? And he's trying to say, like, I'm there. I'm the one who picks up the kids. You might drop them off, but I pick them up. But it's like, that's not
enough.
That might not be enough. And it's like, you just had that conversation by yourself in your head saying, I did my job. I clicked the task.
Yeah, it's very transactional.
But
it's like, he looks at it like a task. She looks at it like, no, this is being
it's something you need to communicate.
Yeah.
But it's also something that, Jesse has, again, we see it at every stage of his life with his kids, with his wife. He's just not present. Again, he's in his own world, being this idealist.
Yeah.
Like, for him, like the way she explains, like, dude, if you can be
he
here,
apologized for it at the end.
He did, but like at the same time, just
not saying it's enough. I'm just saying he even knows. He's like, I am not present.
Yeah, he's like, dude, like, if you could be with those two other authors all year long and just fucking talk about how great your dicks is and like fucking you're smart, dude, you're way cooler, man. Like, that is what Jesse perfect life is, and unfortunately, like, he doesn't want to do anything that comes along with being a responsible husband and a father.
Dude, I think we should jump into the nitty gritty.
The fight
argument.
The fight. Well, first of all, we forgot right before the fight, we saw Julie Delpy take her shirt off.
Ugh.
See, but look, that was just like, I think what I didn't like about that scene was that they were still fighting instead of just like.
But that's fucking real, bro. I mean, I've been in a relationship almost as long as you. And I will tell you this. There's times in my relationship where I'm arguing with my partner. And as I'm arguing, and I'm like, no.
And your
I've
pants are
argued
off?
in the nude too. I'm not going to lie. But when I'm arguing with my partner and I'm looking at her and I'm like, God, I want to fucking kiss you. And it pisses me off. Pisses me off that I'm still attracted to you in this moment because I don't want to be, because I just want to be mad. I want to be annoyed. And I might not even like it. I mean, rarely, like, I'll see that whole dynamic of her putting her shirt back on and him putting his pants back on. If I'm there, I'm not really thinking about the sex or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
But
At that point, it's over.
If I'm just at the, like, I'm annoyed stage or whatever, and I just don't want to, like, I can overcome the annoyance pretty easily.
I'm sure you can, Nick. I'm sure you can.
So I think that was very real. Like, in my personal opinion, I don't know if you've witnessed this, but, like, I don't.
No, I think what I didn't find real was them just like, okay, why are you guys arguing now? You know, it's not. I don't feel like
Time and place.
There's a time and place. I'm like, if you're here to do something, it's not even like be fucking like.
No,
like,
well, I found it real
even
because it's like I mean, it's not like they wanted to argue. It just came to that point. But it's like,
But why? Why?
But it was just because Jesse started poking the bear.
I don't think it's that.
no.
So what I mentioned with the walk is that was the first time they got a chance to date each other. What do you think that was also the first time they had a chance to actually have a fucking real conversation?
Yeah,
about what's
no.
going wrong?
The whole movie is a build up to their argument, and if you look at the little innuendos, like just their conversations at the dinner table, the walk, everything, they're literally fucking racking up ammunition for both sides of their
What
argument.
happened in the car?
Well,
They were arguing. They got mad, and then what happened?
no,
the girls woke up.
I think you're 100%
No,
right.
they got interrupted.
Every little thing that they talked about and little portions of the movie, all were referred back to in the argument, and
In
I
the
think
climax.
it was great. Yeah, even the first time just seeing it, I was like, "Holy fuck!" They talked about this.
No,
Yeah.
but
I was like, "Oh my god!"
They know how
Sorry,
to argue.
I don't think they definitely had ammunition, but I think we've all had those experiences where it's just like you guys been fight, little bickering here and there, and it leads up to the big fight at the end of the day, and like I think the lack of patience that they've had for each other. They have already been waiting for this moment to be alone. You know, they're on edge, and you can see it. Like Jesse's trying to be in the moment for once because he's gonna get laid. Let's be honest. That's the only.
Of course, he's still
He's
motivated.
thinking
at
with
that.
his penis. Of
Yeah,
course.
like he turns off the phone, and
you
And
can
she
see
goes
how
back
he
and turns
turns.
it back on.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's you see like the contrast in what's going on between them. You know.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I brought up the nudity, because not because it's like, oh, boobies,
Yeah.
but it's like the first two movies, it's very intimate, it's very personal, but in this film it's even more personal because we see them actually about to become intimate, and then all of a sudden, these real conversations that they have while they're pretty much exposed
Yeah.
between themselves and to us. And so it feels even more real, because it's like, I mean, we've all been here.
I get what you're saying. So they're putting themselves out like.
Yeah, like
out in the open
this is
there.
us. Like
Yeah.
there's
Exactly.
literally nothing to
Okay.
hide. There's nothing for you guys to like.
How many times do you think Ethan Hawke purposely fucked up his lines during those scenes?
Actually, I saw an interview about that scene, and Ethan Hawke wasn't saying much, but Julie Delpy was like, it was just so awkward and uncomfortable because like I see this friend just munching on my tits, like it's just so weird.
We talked about
But
that
Ethan
after
Hawke, I'm
Frida.
sure, had a good time. Like,
Well, I think it's because, like, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, this is someone that you've known for 20 years of your life in a platonic sense. Like, even
yeah.
if you think about the first movie, it was kind of passionate. They shared a lot of kisses. The second movie was not as passionate. They didn't really. I don't know. Did they kiss?
No,
They didn't portray it in the film.
they barely
at all.
even touched each other.
They,
Yeah,
they
so
literally just
And the moment that they
insinuated to
touch
it,
each
but
other
that's
was
it.
kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So they went from a first
They hugged,
movie
which is beautiful.
where they kissed and it was passionate to 19 years without touching each other in an intimate sense. And now all of a sudden, this person that you're like, I've known you for 19 years. He's probably godfather to somebody in their family. They probably summered, vacationed, or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's sucking her titties.
Yeah,
And his wife is watching that shit over the phone. And,
right.
like,
Or her partner.
Or, yeah, or whoever.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But it's funny because Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, they were co-writers on this film.
They were
Yeah.
co-writers.
awesome.
Well,
They
they
were-
did-
with a director.
They did
Richard
fantastic.
Linklater.
Because holy shit,
I wonder who wrote
some
that
of those
scene.
scenes were
Oh, I
so
think we know.
infuriating because they were so real. They fucking hit it.
I kind
I
of want to
know.
talk about the elements of the fight. Like, so
Yeah.
a lot of the things that, just to kind of make it so that we talk about everything that was talked about. So they really brought home the whole concept of, the feeling of like being an absentee father, and the feeling of saying like, I'm not in Hank's life and I should be in Hank's life and Chicago should be an option. We talked about obviously like why Celine doesn't think that's right. There's a lot about Celine's feelings of how she feels like she's trying to be put in a box and not being allowed to be her own woman with her career and her own aspirations. There's a whole lot about how like those actually probably seem like the biggest two themes. Is number one, she doesn't want to give up her life. She feels like she's given up already. And then from the perspective of Jesse, he feels like he's also given up enough already, and it's time for him to come back to some of the more important things in his life. And they're kind of conflicting. Obviously, that's where the fight comes from. A lot of the things that I saw in this fight that kind of upset me. I mean, I'll be honest. Like my relationship, two Type A people, nobody is like really. We're both dominant people, so it's very easy for
he's a
things
dom.
it's very easy for us to get out of hand if we fight. And one of the things that I've found, and the things that I kept looking for when they were arguing, is that the buildup occurred, and as it was happening, none of them were willing to even give an inch. Like they were both making fucking good points, and every time it was like, "How do I counter you?" It wasn't, "How do I listen to what the fuck you're saying?"
It was all strategic and planned.
100%.
It was like, holy shit.
I mean, after 10 years, you get to know that person. You know what hurts. You know what's real.
That's the real truth. Absolutely.
And I think Nick and I, we understand.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been in our relationships about that long.
Yeah.
What I did like to see is that when they did use really bad like fighting techniques, that's when like the each of the small arguments or like the sub parts of the whole fight scene kind of happened. When Celine chose to walk away, she lost that like as an exchange, because she came back and she realized, I still need to talk this through. So when Jesse started to raise his voice and he all of a sudden felt like he needed to yell, Celine walked away, but all of a sudden she was justified. That was when she finally got to actually leave the argument. It seemed like the whole time I was really actually, to be honest, the only person I ever saw try to say like, I get it, you're right, that's a good point, I understand where you're coming from, was Jesse. That's the thing that pissed me off. Like Celine was saying so much true shit. I'm on her side as far as all the guilt that he's feeling about his son. It's real, but he's projecting what he's feeling onto his son and saying that she should feel the same. Where she's like, no, I've done a lot. I've given a lot. I want to be my own woman now. It's time I make some sacrifices for myself too.
And I think she was so emotional because she's just been so fed up with it.
And she never talked about it.
She's never been able to talk about it.
I think also to defend Celine a little bit, I guess now that I'm talking to you guys about it a little bit more, it makes more sense, mainly because it's like, how are you going to go out of your way to be a father to Henry when you're not even doing your best to be a father to our daughters?
Exactly.
So I didn't see that.
So what I said earlier in the fucking thing.
No, I know.
But he's saying it better.
Isaac, hold on.
Jesus,
I'm literally saying, from having a conversation with you guys, I didn't see that exact perspective when we were watching the film. That's why I was so aggravated. But now looking back at it, I'm like, holy shit. You're right. He wasn't being the best father.
Crazy.
And if you think
doesn't mean he was being a bad father, though. However,
no, but look, to me, that is still being a bad father. Just because you're fucking buying these expensive trips,
I think
you're missing the point.
Human,
I feel like in his mind, he thinks he's being the best, but Celine realizes that he's not, and he doesn't want to own up to it because that's not how he sees it.
I don't think he thinks he's being the best.
No, but he's trying. He's sacrificing. He's doing these different things.
I think he believes that he's not able to be the best.
He's egotistical. That's why he's like, I'm doing so much, but in reality, he's not doing shit. He could do so much more.
But he's
doing it right. But it's
I think,
in his eyes, he's just
he likes to see his big sacrifices as enough to justify the small things that he is not willing to do. And the thing that, in my opinion, would piss me off the most if I had a partner who had their own kids and then we have our kids, is that he's talking about, and Celine's pointing out, is that the real problem is that you weren't there for the formative years. Like, if you want to get to the fucking truth of it, the one that hurts is that you weren't there when you needed to be. And now you don't. He doesn't need you anymore.
He's 14 though.
He's 4.
He's still.
I'm not saying he couldn't need him or he shouldn't need him.
But he's more self-sufficient at this point.
Exactly.
He's he's figured out a lot of stuff that
not only that, but now what he needs from his father, because of technology, he can attain. He can actually get. Like, as much as the physical touch and presence would absolutely be important and should be there, it's not as critical as when you're a 5-year-old child.
I think you guys are all right. I'm looking at more of a perspective that she's not even understanding of that fact. She's just like, none of that matters. This is all you would get, and it's not worth it in my eyes.
Well,
that's how I felt she was saying when she was like, I'm not moving to Chicago.
Well, I don't think it's just that. I mean, I think,
no, I know, but that's what it sounded like. In my perspective, I'm like, oh, she doesn't care.
But you're putting it in a vacuum where you're just analyzing his situation and not analyzing her situation. Was like, okay, we're going to move there. I'm going to uproot my children's life. I'm going to uproot my life. We're all going to be in a more uncomfortable position.
It's not like he's choosing to one or the other. It's not like that black and white. It's like, no, I want both. And I think you should at least think about that. He's not saying like, I want you to move to Chicago. I think that she's just not. He's frustrated that she's not even understanding of that.
No, 100%. She should have been more willing to figure out a solution.
That's my problem with it. It's not like, that she should move to Chicago. It's the fact that she doesn't care. She's like, no, it's not worth it.
But you know what? I think she's coming from a place where she's already had that conversation with him in previous times. Because again, he goes through this every fucking year.
Yeah, but you know what her solution was? She literally said, fuck it then, move to Chicago, leave me and the kids.
Well, that's because she's sick of it.
Yeah, she's sick of it.
But it's like really? That's how you react? It's like, I'm fucking pouring my heart out and telling you how I feel.
George,
and this is what you tell me?
I think this is the part where he hasn't been in a relation. No, he hasn't been in a relation long enough.
Sometimes one partner will always have to
hear
be
that? He's calling you out, George. He's calling you out, George.
I'm just saying this is how I felt during the movie. I think all you guys' perspectives and opinions on the subject make sense. They hold merit. But this is how I portrayed it when she was speaking and like going against him, and that's why it like aggravated me.
I mean, like, I see your point of view, and I want to add on to that where I feel that I think he's bringing it up too because like it was brought up earlier. He likes to be transactional about things. You did this, well, I did this, and he's like, well, I left the United States to come here to Paris. You can have our kids here, and now we stayed, and now I want us to go back to the U.S. and join our families together. Why can't you do that?
In the airport scene was that at the end of the day, what sparked a lot of this was that she immediately got defensive. You could tell she was holding a lot of shit in. She hadn't voiced for I don't know how long that she was feeling like they were pushing this, or he was pushing in particular, this agenda of like, we got to move to the U.S. I need to be closer to my son. Whatever it does to you and your career is a secondary thought. And she elevated that in her head, and they hadn't talked about it, and it blew up. And for him, what he needs to do better is that at the end of the day, he's trauma dumping all this shit, when in reality, he should have been dealing with this for days. He should have been slowly processing in his head, getting ready for the moment where he has to say goodbye to his son, right? He was a big boy enough to get this woman pregnant, and he's got twins now, and he's not married, but they love each other and they're committed. So he's also got to be big enough boy to make sure that he's still taking care of that part of the relationship.
And honestly, I think he just needs to figure out how to just be mature and like go away from the situation, see what's going on, because it's not going to help his relationship with Celine, because he's obviously just dumping.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
and like a big part of I think what we talked about more than anything is that he's choosing to say like, this is for my son. I'm doing this for my son. But like very clearly from the beginning of the movie, he's making a whole lot of assumptions on behalf of his son. And like his son's like, this isn't what I want. This is what I'm asking for. This isn't where I'm trying to be. I don't need you to look at my piano recital. It's just going to make it worse for me. I don't want you to necessarily go to my soccer practice. I don't even like soccer like that. Like, it's fine. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of this could have been solved, and a lot of this just needs to be communication between him and his son, and that'll probably help that situation enough where he doesn't have to worry so much about seeing his dad and what it'll impact.
I think this kind of just shows that Jesse hasn't really changed at all. He's still that selfish kid who, I mean, he wants everything to work out, but on his own terms, and he'll impose his own wants on other people because that's the only way he knows how to do it.
But I want to interject a little bit. I feel like you guys are right. He is being selfish. He's also doesn't know his son well enough, all these different things. But I think he's valid in the sense to actually consider those things and have those feelings and emotions and bring those up to light with his wife. But the thing is that I feel like Celine is so quick to, like, you know, reject them right away, which is also not an appropriate way to react to those types of emotions. It's not whether or not they actually move there, but it's also like the fact that he's even having those emotions and feelings and considering that is something that they should talk about. I think the communication is lacking, but I don't think that the emotions and feelings are invalid.
It's not that Celine's invalidating his feelings. I think it's more or less of, you know, we talked about this earlier. It's him continuing a cycle of, like, like, okay, realistically, we can't do anything about it. Like, why can't you just like move on? You know,
yeah, but what do you do? You just move on? You're just like, all right, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I'll see my son when I see him.
But no, it's not about like, again, moving on to finding an actual solution to like that will benefit everybody, instead of just being like, hey, this is the only way. We talk about this every year that that I have these thoughts and stuff. But like, it's, if I was in his position, and I'd be like, dude, I'm getting like, this shit keeps happening. What can I do to make everybody happy? But he's not doing that. He's just like, this is kind of the only solution. Like, I'm agreeing with you, Celine, that like it's not worth it, but like I still have these feelings.
He's not being realistic, which is so funny in the context of the films, because in the first film he was the realist, and she
super
was the
realist,
optimist.
super like even borderline like negative person.
Yeah, and I think time or age has changed him. The things that he's experienced, and maybe the example of him and Celine. Yeah. Like maybe in the back of his mind, he's like, I should have stayed with her that night, and my life would have been more simple. Yeah. And this is another kind of like situation that's similar.
It's just him not trying to grow. And unfortunately, like, we have all been there when we're in fights, in arguments with a significant other, and like we start bringing out the pettiness, we start bringing out like the
past and all this shit. Yeah.
And see, but that's what I mean. Like, the issue at hand isn't necessarily like what they're gonna do about the situation. It's more how they act on the whole thing. Altogether, they're literally being so petty towards one another and not finding an actual solution, just arguing.
Well, I think it's one of those like mistakes where, especially like, I think if they spent a whole summer with a bunch of strangers, or even if, I don't know, I mean, it didn't really show in the context of the movie how much they knew a lot of these people besides like the main like patriarch older gentleman. I forgot what his name was.
He was just another author that he was cool
with.
Yeah,
besides him, like, how much did they actually communicate in the past, and were they pen pals at least, or anything like that, right? It didn't really get into that. And so for her, she probably felt like, I've been trying to say some shit for some time, and we really haven't had an opportunity to really like hash some stuff out. Yeah. And unfortunately, like, I mean, we've talked about this even recently, like in a conversation where it's like, when you get in a big fight, it almost feels like open the floodgates. Like, here's all this shit for since the last big fight that I've been holding in, and I just didn't know how to talk about, because I didn't want to ruin a random Saturday afternoon. I didn't want to change up what we were going to do like on a Monday just to bring it up. So instead, I'm going to bring it all out right now.
That's unfortunate. That's like, I feel like an unfortunate reality of a lot of, relationships and situations. If you're not holding that constant, healthy communication with your partner about little things that irk you or things that are bugging you, eventually they build up to the point where it's like this little issue becomes a fucking mountain. And it escalates to the point where you're like, are we really about to, fucking tarnish our relationship irreparably over something so fucking what's the term, cavalier? No, is that
trivial?
Yes. It's insane.
I think we've gone over them fighting for a good portion of this episode. I think let's talk about the resolution and how truly, like, I think when you get to their age and you start dealing with like the emotions, and they understood, like, I feel like they understood that they were petty with each other. They understood, like, we both fucked up at separate points, and there's realistically nobody that has a higher ground in this case. Like, let's see how that little scene where they they tried to make he's like, I'm just trying to make you laugh, I'm trying to move on for right now. I know it's not like this, maybe is not resolved, but I think
let's talk about what actually happened, right? Yeah, because Celine left.
Yeah, she
basically said, fuck this, like, I'm done with you, I don't love you anymore. And Jesse was obviously kind of devastated by that.
I mean, I don't know, I feel like I kind of got a different vibe of like, I know, and I feel like being in longer relationships, maybe you'll agree with me too. It's like sometimes when your partner's just trying to hurt you, and now as a result of time, you're just like, like, I'm gonna call you on your bullshit. You don't fucking mean that, and I'm not gonna let it get to me as much. I think he was just frustrated. He's like, fuck, we're here again. Like, and so that's where he like laid back on the bed, put his arms behind his head, and he was just like, all right. So yeah, I mean, I think that there's a big part when, like we're saying, you learn your relationship after years of understanding kind of, okay, when are they just trying to fucking say something that's hurtful just because they want to get it out there, just because they want to one up you, versus when they're actually about it. Like in my opinion, that scene didn't feel like Jesse was like torn apart by her statement of I don't love you anymore, and I feel like that would have shown if he made no effort to reconcile afterwards. But I feel like he laid back, he thought about what his next move was going to be, because he understood like, oh, we clearly fucking took it too far. Like we got too angry, you know, we're too old for this shit kind of deal. Like we know we love each other, we know we want to be with each other. And you know, that's probably when he actually really took time to think about what he should have done. And I mean, we talked about it earlier, it seems like he's the only one who's taken that step in the relationship so far.
I want to interrupt though, because I feel like her saying that, she didn't say it like it's not something to take lightly.
No, absolutely.
No.
I was actually about to say the same exact thing.
Yeah.
I'm
100%
glad
agree.
we're on the
Like,
same page here. 'Cause,
yeah.
like, I think that I haven't been in a relationship as long as you guys have, but I don't think I will never take those kinds of things lightly, mainly because I'm not that person. Whenever I argue and say things like that, I mean, not say things like that. I don't say things like that unless I actually mean them. So for someone to get that aggressive and angry with me, I'm not that type of person. So I must have done something that was fucked up.
Yeah.
Or if I said that, then I really mean it. Yeah. Because I don't think I take those things lightly. And I'm also not verbal and angry in the sense where I'm like, I let my emotions get ahead of me. I will say what I mean if I need to.
Yeah.
So that kind of situation, I don't know if it's just because I haven't been in a long-term relationship where it eventually leads to that. I hope not. But
no,
that's
it's,
like
absolutely
No,
not.
but I think again, it's going back to what Nick's saying. They both understand, and at the time, and like I said earlier, they're just being petty with each other.
Yeah.
They're just one upping each other.
I know, but I think I'm like, if she said something like that to me and I was in a relationship like that, I'd be like, no, fuck no. Like,
Well, I mean,
don't fucking talk to me.
I think
that might end it completely. For
It
me.
might even be a cultural thing, to be honest. Like I look
Yeah.
at my parents and how I've seen my parents fight,
Yeah.
and like, dude, the shit that they're like, and I don't know if it's Latin parents in this case. I mean, you guys could speak to your parents and how they fought, but like the shit they're willing to say to each other sometimes, I'm like, fuck, dude, that was too far. Yeah. Like too much, too
I agree.
far.
I've
so maybe
that.
it's something like a French thing for her, where she's like, you know, I'm not so shy to say some fucked up.
And we're not imposing anything.
No. I'm
like,
speculating here, completely speculative.
Yeah.
But I think that's real too. Like, I mean, look, I don't want to fucking air all my family's dirty laundry, so I won't. But understanding that there's been times where I'm like, I look at like what's happened in my family and other relationships around me, and I'm like, that was too far. That's a personal opinion to some extent. Some couples are comfortable saying that they can take it that far and they can walk away and still love each other.
Yeah, and
I might not, and I agree with you for that feeling too.
Yeah,
but that's also not for me to say what another couple is willing to put up with.
It's again, you know, it's when you're in a relationship, you got to figure out what you're comfortable with. You know, you guys set up your boundaries and stuff. And even though like I feel like the four of us have pretty similar boundaries and pretty similar like the way we view stuff. Well, that's you know, probably that's because we're friends.
Yeah,
couldn't be me, bro. I wouldn't let that slide.
Well, but we're not saying that we would. It just in their situation, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, no, I get you. I get what you're saying.
But going back to that scene, I think like we've already said it, but that was her final knife in his back essentially. And what I find interesting is the fact that Jesse, like, he could have easily said, all right, you know what, fuck it, this will make it easier for me, I'm gonna go see my son, goodbye. Like he could have done that. He's made a choice like that before.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
And instead he decided to go find her and woo her back. Yeah, and I think it helped that in this scene, you know, they're by a
beautiful setting.
A beautiful setting,
yeah,
like you see.
They're like at a dock or something.
Yeah,
like
they're at a dock. It's not the beach, but
picture perfect scene.
Yeah,
which is so funny considering like she addressed like the romance of it all multiple times in the hotel room, and she was just getting so pissed off at it. Like, this is too perfect. What the fuck is a couples massage and shit like that? Like, that's so creepy.
Yeah, the fucking guy, he's a pervert. Like,
exactly.
why would he set us up in this fucking?
He is a pervert, but I thought he was your friend.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
Jesse's friend, not her friend.
Yeah, but as you were saying, I do want to get into like the resolution and like kind of like them making up. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm curious how you guys, if you guys feel like that was real, if you guys feel like that looked a little too made up.
I thought it was excellent. One of the things about these films is the thing that kind of tethers them is time, right? Time is important. There's a huge gap between each film and between us as an audience watching these characters. And his story was, hey, I'm from the future, or I'm coming back from the future, and I'm giving you a message from all this time. And we've gone through so much, and I don't want you to let this, you know, stupid moment ruin shit.
Yeah, the best sex of your life.
Yeah, exactly, the best sex of your life. And,
of course, you would throw that in there.
And with time comes wisdom, And so I want to give you some of that, and hopefully, allow us to continue.
I think it's a very realistic thing, because I think especially when
it's cheesy as hell though.
It's cheesy, but I think we've all been
great
there.
way.
No, I feel like we all kind of act like that sometimes with our significant
No,
others.
absolutely.
Even especially like when they're angry and you want to kind of
it's
like get on their
not-
good side.
it's
and
not
you're just kinda
typical
like, all right,
Hollywood
Just
shit.
kind of like
Cause,
squeeze.
because it's like you're being playful, but at the same time you're like, hey, like there's a heavy issue at hand here, but let's ease into it. Like we're both,
Like,
whether it's role play, whether like we're meeting again, or him with like, hey, I come from the
Yeah.
future, blah blah blah.
It's about just giving yourself the space of 5 minutes of what, let's come back together. We're not going to continue this argument right now, and we're not finishing this argument right now, and we know this is still a very important topic,
Yes.
but we just need a little break from that.
Yeah.
Let's just
He just wants to be okay with her.
I think you hit it on the nose. Even if they're not okay after this, at least in the moment, it's like, hey, let's put emotions and like, let's not like act rash. Because I feel like whenever anyone's in a state of anger, anguish, all these different things, you're gonna say and do things that are not necessarily true to your character, and that's not gonna amend what's actually happening. So let's take a step back, really realize what's going on,
and that's why I think a lot of people had an issue with this film, because the first two films are so romantic and lovey-dovey, and this one was just so real and bleak. And I mean, bleak up until this point.
Yeah.
I think things did get better, but it is kind of painful to see Celine react this way and be so angry towards Jesse, and it sucks. It sucks.
And I think what this movie brings to the table is like is a day in a life with it. And honestly, this could be like any couple.
Yeah.
That like, you're just having a good time. Even like, dude, you'll be on vacation. You're having a good time. You think the world, like everything is like perfect, and something may fucking blow up. It's one of those things.
You don't know.
Well, what do you guys think? What do you guys think about the whole way that it kind of ended? Do you guys think that the way? I mean, they ended up together. Obviously, the film kind of says that. And despite all of their issues at hand, is that the ending that you guys would have wanted? Is that the ending you guys expected? What do you guys feel about how
I think
kind of came to a conclusion after the trilogy?
I think I expected this ending, just because it's these movies have always been pretty realistic in what we see. So when you see like that resolution of where they're just trying to, they're gonna get back to just being them for a while. Again, it's not ignoring the issues; it's just taking a break, and then maybe coming back to when cooler heads will always provide. They will always come ahead. And they're gonna get back to. They're gonna talk it out, and you know what? Jesse's again, like she said, like this is a fucking cycle. Like I know you're gonna be bitching about this.
Yeah,
we're gonna get into the argument, and we're eventually just gonna be okay with it, and and hopefully it doesn't happen next year. But the probability, it's there.
So you said it was realistic and is what you expected, but is that what you would have wanted?
I think so,
film?
because I think the whole point. I mean, we've been talking about how cheesy it sounded at the end. Like I wouldn't really categorize it as cheesy, because cheesy would be for me like in typical romance movies where all of a sudden there's like
they make love and
they make love at the end, like
the
you could drop
Hallmark
it.
shit. Yeah.
She didn't drop it. It took.
Well, I mean, it was implied they made love.
No,
not love.
Here's what
Sorry,
I'm saying.
fucking the best sex.
Here's my point, though. What I'm not saying is that she didn't drop it at the end, but she did not drop it. It took him giving up. He literally said, he's like, "Fuck it," and then she realized she was like, she had to like. I think in that silence, she was like, "He's trying, and I'm not, and I could either let this literally die or fucking try." And
even
like
a little bit,
and that's what it
gave
takes.
In a little,
but it wasn't like, and that's where also like again, it's great because this is the maturity, right? They're 41 years old at this point, and so they're like, okay, I need to try.
Well, I think that's, in my opinion, in general, I think that's a little bit of what's tragic about it, because it's like, if you look at it from a perspective of like, okay, they are in love, they did all these things, but also like, Jesse fucking cheated. That's a fact. That's like, it's very blatantly, obvious in the fucking movie.
And Celine may have too.
And yeah, that one was a little bit more ambiguous, but regardless, whether she did or didn't, like these people kind of like, did horrible things in their relationship. And I'm not saying it's tragic that they took each other back, but I'm saying it's like, in some situations, it's like, she might be looking at it like, what other option do I have? I'm at the end of my life. I literally, if I leave this guy, this might be it. I might be fucking by myself for the rest of it. I think it's tragic because it's like, all right, she could leave and be fucking almost miserable and alone for the rest of her life, or she's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna deal with our dilemma and some. I'm not saying it's one or the other, but it is a sad perspective to think about.
But
yeah.
I think that's a very bleak. Like look at it. You know, I'm speaking because we know these characters over the last like a 20-year period, right? And these characters, you know, Celine doesn't need. Let's be honest. She's a modern feminist. She don't need a fucking man. You know, she said she was like, I'll be happy, you know, just doing me. You know,
Yeah.
and like, I don't need much from like a man. Like that's not her like her main thing. So you know, it goes back to that I don't think that's the case in her case. Even if she, you know, even if she fucking left him or whatever, like
Yeah.
she will find it happy. Like where
Well, I think too is I mean, dude, like I think it was so well spoken in the first movie, or sorry, in the second movie when it started, where it said like you can choose to look at this anyway. What George, I hadn't even really thought about it that way, George, and I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. Like, you know what? Maybe she is coming to her. I'm 40 years old. What other options do I have? Like, I have twins. Do I really want to look into a new relationship? Is that even something I'm like willing to entertain?
Imagine being a single mother of twins.
Yeah, I couldn't
at
imagine
45. Like it's
Yeah.
not.
42.
Okay, sorry,
42.
42. Regardless, I mean, it's like you're already past your mid-age. You're kind of like it's gonna be difficult. It's not gonna be easy.
Yeah.
And also, Jesse's a provider. I'm not saying like this is what happened in the
Actually,
film, but I do have
But
those
that's-
thoughts that
Actually,
cross my mind.
That's my point.
She was a
depending-
provider.
I think it's depending on where
She
you're
had
at.
she had the job that actually made their income what it was.
Wait, was it? I don't know. For some reason, I thought
Well, I think
that he was a
he said
successful
that
writer.
at the end of the
so-
day. Well, no, he's successful, but her new job, the new prospect that she said she was going to take, was going to make a lot more money. And so, what she was inferring at times was saying that you're too afraid of me being the provider all of a sudden.
Yeah, so I think Jessie was the provider for the most part, but she could have been with that new position, which was one of the reasons why she was like complaining that like how you're trying to hold me back. You're not.
But I think that's irrelevant, you know. But
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's relevant in the question that we're asking, whether it's like, I mean, is she scared to leave because of these factors, or just she wants to stay because she's genuinely in love with him?
I don't think that's the case. I think this is just a natural progression to a relationship, and that's kind of the thesis to these films, right? Like what is romance? What is it to actually be in love?
Yeah. What is it at year 1? What is that year 10? What is it?
And being in love doesn't mean you're all, oh man, like you know, like romantic all the time.
Yeah.
And, oh, I love you this, I love you that. No, it's learning each other and learning how to figure shit out when there's disagreements.
And that's why I think what the other couple says, like, you got to be able to negotiate. You got to be able to just fucking sit there and talk it out. It may sound like shit, it may sound good, whatever, to whoever it may be, but you got to be there. And I think when you love the person that's in front of you, you will always be there and hear them out. And you know what? You make valid points, but I can't do that right now. Let's find the middle ground.
And that's why the more I watch this film, the more I like it, because I pick up on different things, because I'm getting older too, and I'm looking at things, and that end is really beautiful, because despite this big blow up, you know, Jesse's able to let go and try to convince her to come back, and she's also able to let go and go and just run with it, because you know they love each other and they need each other, they want each other, and I don't know if they're meant for each other, but like this is how it's gonna be. Like this is a relationship.
Well, I think the reason that I'm so against the fact that they actually end up together is because, like, I feel like if my partner cheated on me at that stage of my life, it would ruin me. I would never be able to get over it. I don't think I'd be able, like, I'm looking at it from Celine's perspective, obviously. Like we mentioned, it's not 100%, you know, blatant that she did cheat, but even if she did, I mean, it would still be kind of like love is no longer here for either party.
But you're imposing yourself on Celine. When
your values and what you think is
when what we know of Celine is, I think
she doesn't care.
She's a realist, and like shit happens.
Yeah.
But I still love Jesse, and we have twins together. We have a life together, and all that. Like it's basically what he was saying. All that shit ancillary. It doesn't matter. You know, we make mistakes. I'm not saying cheating is okay. I think it's absolutely horrible. And you know, like if my partner did something like that, you know, I don't think I could forgive, whatever. But in the context of these specific people,
these two characters,
they can make it work. Like
I get that. I mean, I guess I'm just saying, like, if I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, is this realistic? Yes, it is for these characters. For myself,
you're projecting, like, George. You're projecting.
I mean, isn't that what movies are? We kind of see ourselves as the main characters.
In these movies.
But now Let's see what other people thought. Yeah. Yes, onto the
All
Letterboxd reviews.
That'd be cool if we could enter like a cool little sound here.
Yeah. All right, here's the first one by Nat.
Letterboxd reviews with Alexis.
All right, Nat. Watched this with my high school boyfriend in 2013, and I cried during the end credits and just sort of made him sit there with me in silence. I was cool? ? 5 stars. That's
a pretty realistic.
You're pretty damn cool. Actually,
Yeah.
In silence in high school, ain't no way.
Honestly, dude, I don't know if my emotional like stages in high school could handle this shit.
I'd be fucking laughing or something just out of like how weird
what the fuck
feeling.
Like, this must be romantic. Wow.
Say some stupid shit like that.
I like
Great
that.
review, though.
That was
No,
fun.
it's good.
5
I like
star.
that.
Okay, this one 3.5 star by Connor.
Connor's dumb as shit already.
All right, let's see. He says, I mean, it's good, but not as great as the last two. I don't know. It just didn't hit me like the other two. It had charming moments, but not as charming or enough chemistry as the other ones. Celine and Jesse walking around and talking in Vienna again. With that being said, you should definitely watch all the Before movies. Also, L to Celine for randomly dissing Joan of Arc like that.
Wait, who's Joan of Arc?
Joan of Arc
Joan
was.
of Arc? You don't know who the fuck that is, buddy?
Wait,
Oh man,
who?
Joan of Arc. She.
Am I supposed to know?
Yeah,
She's like a
Oh
martyr.
my God.
She was a
was like in
martyr.
the Crusades, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
she ended up being a martyr. She got burned at the stake.
She saved
That was the one
France.
she said. Like she saved France, and
No,
they're
no.
like,
First of all, the French, dude. Come on, we're Mexican, bro. What the fuck?
Yeah.
They helped us out a lot, you dick.
No, they didn't. The Mexicans
they're not gonna
and
get-
the French have a feud for like forever, bro.
yeah, Colombians are in there too.
Yeah.
Alright.
But he gave it a 3.5 star. It's not a bad rating.
I think it's definitely a 4 though. This movie's a 4.
Whoa,
Wait,
we're not even there yet. though.
In Letterboxd terms, not my actual review.
No,
okay?
no. Well, I mean, I think he brings up valid points. Like, I mean, the
Oh,
first two were more romantic, but
Yeah.
I feel like this wrapped up the trilogy in a sense where
Yeah.
it was like you guys said,
But-
realistic.
And they say it's
It
not as
also was
charming
raw.
or enough chemistry, but I think the
I think
chemistry
the
is
chemistry
different.
was
As a
different.
romance
Exactly.
film, I think it did not live up to the first two. But it's like it's
Dude.
fucking it's a
I
tragedy.
think it just
It's a
depends
fucking
on.
tragedy.
I think it depends on your emotional maturity. I think, and I'm not saying none of us are there or are there, but I'm not trying to make that assumption for anybody. But I'm just saying, like, it depends on what you know a relationship is. Like in certain places, I could see this as being one of the best movies of the trilogy for some people, where they're like, dude, that hit home, or my God.
I liked it a lot.
Dude,
I liked
like-
it a lot. It
Like,
hit
but
home.
for some people, they might like. I'm a romantic, so yeah, dude. Don't get me wrong. I love the first two because I'm just like, oh, the butterflies in my
Oh
stomach.
yeah,
and
Oh,
everything.
the butterflies.
Great.
I get it every time with the second one. But how can you not have chemistry when you're sucking titty and having an argument that's really convincing? All right, this is by Star. Well, this is like a symbol. It's like a star Neve. I don't know what that is. All right, she gave it a 2 star.
This chick is fucking crazy.
I thought this was gonna be a fun time like the first two, but I just feel miserable. I get that time has passed, so the relationship isn't perfect and people have flaws and blah blah blah. But this completely ruined the magic of the first two. I mean, Jesse's cheating on Celine. Nothing could have saved this movie after hearing that. Even by the end, nothing was resolved. I wish I could
Celine
unsee this because this was so disappointing.
Sorry, Alex.
Go ahead.
Selena also might have cheated, so just
Yeah,
throwing that out
no.
there. I mean, you're kind of looking at it from one side. Who knows? They both
And
might
again,
be.
this is someone trying to like, dude. If you want to watch, like, no disrespect to Neve, is it Neve? I think it was.
Neve
No
with
disrespect to
some,
this person,
stuff.
but if you want to watch a movie like that, go to The Notebook, where everything's fucking perfect.
Yeah.
And
It's
there's
all
no-
rainbows and fucking unicorns.
This isn't what this movie's about, and that's why I love it. Because when I see this movie, I see an attainable relationship. Now, does that mean that in my 40s I want my partner to have cheated on me? No. But the idea that I can have a civil, like, you know how fucking sexy it is, the thought that, like, I can fight with my partner and then we come together at the end of the night and we go to sleep happy or even
That's
resolved.
hot.
That's what I want.
That's what
Nice.
gets me.
I want
going.
that shit more than I want. Honestly, I want that shit more than I want the one night in Vienna. Because the one night in Vienna is one fucking night. But if I have to worry that I don't know how to argue with my partner over some bullshit and then come together at the end of the night and say, I was wrong and you were wrong, and let's still blow each other's brains out, later today. Like that's
Wow.
the fucking American
It's
dream.
always about sex with this guy.
Nick, that's fucking beautifully said.
Yeah.
I couldn't have, put the words in that fucking order the way that you did. But I think that not only do I agree with Nick, but movies are meant to give you emotion and feelings, and even though the feelings that I got in this movie were a little heavy and gross, and it makes you feel like fuck, so frustration, all these different things. That's important because a lot of the times that's what you need. It's raw, it's real, And it's like, it reminds me of when I watched A Marriage Story. Same fucking thing. Holy shit. It cut fucking deep, but it also shows you the reality of things and relationships. And it's not always fucking...
Adam Driver was so good.
Yeah, they were both stellar in that movie. And it's not just... Life isn't that clear cut. It's not always going to be super happy. Even with relationships that do well in the long term and end up happy and together for fucking, you know, 30, 40 years. This is the reality of things sometimes. Obviously, like Nick said, I mean, the details are a little different. Obviously, you don't want your partner to cheat, these different things, but they made it work nonetheless. So, I agree.
Well put.
Do we have any more Letterboxd reviews?
One last one.
Okay.
And thank you, Neve. I mean, she didn't submit the review for us, but, you know, it's nice that we were able to
appreciate
read
your
this.
opinion.
Yeah. All right, last one by Cinemonica. Way too realistic for me to fully enjoy it, if that makes sense. I appreciate how raw it is, but the way it ended left a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth. 3.5 star. See, this one's kind of like, this one's got like reviews all over the place.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
People love it. People are in the middle. I think just.
I think
they have an issue with romance changing, evolving.
I think this is a movie that you don't watch once you just had like a fresh argument, or maybe you do, but like because it just like
it's therapy, baby.
It's not even therapy. You're just like it takes you back. You're like, dude, what the fuck? Dude? I just had
you get some flashbacks.
Yeah, dude, you get Vietnam flashbacks. You hear Rising Sun in your head, like.
Yeah, I think it's hard to show this side of the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and to portray that so well, I think it may hit way too close to home, like she said, and people aren't ready to accept that that's a part of life.
Yeah,
and I think that's a personal issue. Like, not to sound like mean, but
yeah,
you know what? I think now that we're getting a little bit older, we can correlate with this film a little bit more, like our views and
exactly.
Understanding of life and relationships a little more juxtaposed to what the film portrays, rather than if I would have watched this when I was like 18, 19, I would have hated it. I would have been like, this movie fucking blows. Like, there's no way.
I wasted $13 on this shit right now.
I would be like, yo, I abhor it.
We would have sneaked in.
But you know what?
I still would have been, man. I'm like, I spent my afternoon like this? Nah, fam. Like,
but you know what? I think that's what makes these movies great, because I'm like, I don't think that many people have ever heard this trilogy, and unless you're really into the genre or like a big movie goer.
Yeah,
I literally had no idea this existed until you guys.
Me neither. Alexis brought this to my attention.
I love that. Thank you guys. But
you're welcome.
All right,
last movie a little heavy for sure.
So now that we're moving on with these Letterboxd reviews,
one thing I wanted to add real quick is I think what's so crazy about these Letterboxd reviews is it really shows how many people like. They just use these things as an escape from reality. Like, here we are celebrating the fact that we get to see kind of a mirror image of real life.
Yeah, that they were able to achieve this.
Exactly. And they were like, dude, like, I can see this as like myself. I can see this as a goal. And like, even the negative of the fighting, like, don't get me wrong. Like, we talked a lot about in the fighting segment, like how there was things where they lost because they walked away or they started yelling. And, you know, these are things that I know personally in my life. I have things to work on and that I want to kind of fix, but that doesn't mean that I don't love the fact that, like, and this is something that I've seen as a win in my relationship, is as I evolve with my partner, we're both able to say, how do we go to bed happy? How do we work on making sure that at the end of the day, we don't kind of shy away from still coming together just because something upset us. And some people can't handle like those thoughts and those kind of correlations between their real life and fiction, because this is fiction. This isn't nonfiction. It's not a biography about a real like couple necessarily. I mean, I know it was loosely based off of a relationship, as we talked about from the director, but that doesn't mean that like we should all of a sudden assume that it needs to be fully fiction, fully the Notebook style, fully romantic, and that it can't be real and it can't echo what we want or what we should want out of real life.
You know what's funny about that statement, Nick? That was beautifully put, as always.
You guys don't always have
a
to
fucking
say
way
everything.
with words, bro. I just want to butter you up. Oh my god, Jesus!
Just want to
slather you.
I just want to slather. Yeah, dude.
Hey, I'm in my
Go to
40s.
town.
What I think
I'm
is
in my
funny
40s
though
Julie
is that
Delpy
like,
phase with my ass up.
Julie Dumpy face.
I'm in my Julie Dumpy phase.
She hears this.
he really is. Have you guys ever seen an image of Nick? Cakes all around. It's insane. No, but you know, it's crazy because it's like, all right, people say that this portion of the trilogy is too raw and too real. I think that's incorrect because I think the entire trilogy is too raw and real. Why?
Wow.
Because the beginning, it portrays the honeymoon phase when you just meet someone, you're infatuated with them, you love them.
Cupcakes.
And exactly.
Your
It portrays
cupcake face.
it. Exactly.
Thank
It portrays
you,
that
Alexis.
perfectly.
Thank you.
Right when you meet someone and you're like madly in love with them. And then it goes on to the second stage where it's like, hey, you're still kind of like appeasing them,
It's
doing
the
everything
longing.
for them. Yeah. And all those different factors. But then at the end, you realize, okay, there's so many instances where I let these kind of things slide and whatever. But then eventually it builds up to those big arguments where it gets to the point where you're like, holy shit, am I even with this person because I actually love them? Or are we not compatible and we shouldn't be together? So I think the whole trilogy is realistic from the phases of beginning the date, the middle of dating, and then eventually coming together and having an actual marriage, relationship, kids, family, all that kind of things. So
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like all of it is pretty a good interpretation of
I couldn't
love.
have said it better than George. I
That's
think he
well
wrapped
said.
up the trilogy.
Your ass
right
is
there.
great too.
He's never been so well spoken.
I know, finally, something I want to listen to. Jesus.
Christ.
Well, I appreciate you guys' ending arguments and like what you guys are saying.
Well, it's a discussion, not an argument, right?
Well, we did have arguments as the episode went on.
We had our own
absolutely.
before midnight.
yeah, but now let's talk about what do you guys rate this movie at? I'm gonna start with you, Alexis.
I give it, before,
Before
Before
midnight or
Before watching the
I-
trilogy?
yeah, this was my least favorite, but I put it on par with the first one. And I don't remember what I gave the first one. Probably like a 4.5 star.
No, but in our 9 through
we rate
which
rate
is
1 through
a,
10.
we should really just start like
I know.
actually putting the reviews on Letterboxd
I
for all
know.
of us so we remember.
I do actually. I do. But I average it out. But I guess I'd give it a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
A 9 out of 10.
Nick, where are you at, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw a lot of things in this movie that I really loved. I mean, don't worry, guys. Eventually, I'll be a little bit more harsh and critical of certain movies. I know I just love movies, so I always give them high
watching
ones.
good movies.
Yeah, we just watch a lot of good movies. Maybe we gotta watch some shit ones.
Yeah, like
but-
Tag.
You mean
That's
the 10
the
out of
greatest
10?
movie ever. Yeah.
Fuck that movie.
Yeah, bro.
All right, go
So-
ahead.
I'm like,
but
no,
no,
every
this-
time we
this
review
one-
shit when no one fucking listens. So
This one for me is a 9.5. still.
Wow,
I love this
9.5.
movie.
That's
I love this
good.
trilogy, and I couldn't give it any less.
George,
than
where
that.
you at,
good.
buddy?
I'm pretty sure I've rated the last ones a little bit radically. Now that I've seen the whole trilogy, I feel like the ratings kind of they're not going to match what I actually feel. But I really liked how this kind of wrapped up everything and how it all just came together. If I rated the other ones higher, then I was wrong. I think this one's probably the highest rated one, so I'm going to give it 9.5.
Wow.
I really enjoyed it.
That's crazy.
It was really, it did well for me. But I think I'm also kind of rating the trilogy as a
it
whole.
touches deep, touches deep.
No, but I liked it. I liked it. A little upsetting. Like the emotions and feelings that I felt weren't good, but I enjoyed that it made me feel that way.
I mean, it could
because-
elicit that response.
Exactly. It
What
wouldn't
other
have got
film
that
could?
response. If I could care less, I'd be like, fuck this movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel anything, but it did. And
Perfect.
it's good.
Wow.
I like it. I recommend watching the whole trilogy. If you're a romantic,
Space it
not
out.
a romantic,
Space it out.
Space it out. Yeah.
probably
for
don't
sure.
watch it with your significant other unless you guys are rock solid.
Yeah.
Well, watch the
But-
first two with your partner.
Yeah.
The first
Hey,
one, second one,
yeah.
they're
The first one's gonna get you laid, bro.
All right,
Straight
Gator.
up.
Gator, your
I'm at an 8 because I feel
8.
like this movie's a very. It's I think what makes a good movie, like at least get a really high rating for me. Like I love the movie. I'd watch it, but I watch it again as many times as I can. But it's very situational because I feel like if something's too fresh in your mind, you see those arguments, you see that like pettiness. Like I feel like this is not the movie you can watch comfortably like any time of the day.
no, it's an uncomfortable film.
It's
for
an-
This
sure.
is not a movie I would rewatch
Yeah.
often.
Yeah,
I'd see
so-
it every now and
I
then.
think this is my
but-
third time watching it, but it's been like a few years in between.
Yeah. So that's why I gave it like an 8. It's
Yeah.
not like
But you know what? Averaging it all out, the four guys give this one film a 9.0.
I
Wow.
think that's the
Just
highest
still
rating
phenomenal.
we've gotten on a film.
No, we've
so
got
No,
far.
higher.
no, the other ones were higher.
yeah.
But
Which one? Which one did we do
I
higher
think
than that?
before-
Before Sunset.
Before it
Before
was like
Sunset.
9.5 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we did.
But
we did
as
good.
a
You know what? I
whole-
brought down that average a bit.
Yeah, I think you did. But
Well,
as a
just like
whole,
Isaac,
the Before
this one,
trilogy,
yeah.
the Before trilogy as a whole, personally, I give it a 10 out of 10.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
There's nothing like it.
There's-
Absolutely
Yes.
nothing.
Well,
like
and since we're talking about it, overall thoughts on the trilogy. I mean, my opinions as a quick take is just, phenomenal job of showing a real life scenario of romance, something that you don't typically see. Amazing chemistry between actors,
Oh,
and I love the minimalistic aspect of it too. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we talked about how personal it feels. Like you don't feel like they're trying to make you a character in the film. You just feel like you get to be a fly on the wall throughout the entire experience, which in my opinion, like, was not something I realized I wanted, you know? Like, like as a kid, you always want to be one of the Avengers. You always want to be a character in these movies. And as an adult,
I'm a fucking metiche fool. I need to know that tea. I'm like,
what the?
No, I mean, just because you want to know the tea doesn't mean you also don't want to be one of the, like, you're like, I want to be Thor when I grow up or some bullshit, you know?
We always got to bring back the Marvel movies.
Yeah, you know what? We're horse for it. It's fine. But what I'm saying is, like, this was just a different way of thinking and seeing movies for me. And I loved that. I loved that this brought that out for me. So, yeah, I agree completely. Great trilogy.
I think what this movie also shows that you don't need to have an extremely high budget to make an entertaining hour and a half, because these movies are from an hour 15 to an hour 45, relatively short for the movies that we watch, and just I think relatively short period, you know. So even if like you're a person that like, oh, I can't watch a 2-hour film, and you want to feel something, dude, you can knock out the first. It's an hour 15, and you're gonna be like, oh shit, I've been transported to Vienna. The second one, like, oh shit, I'm in Paris, and I'm dealing with like real life problems right here of my happiness. And the third one's like, dude, how do I? Yeah. So they're a good watch, and you know, if I can't recommend the series enough to anybody. If you're single, you're with somebody, or you know, you're thinking about seeing somebody, like, watch them. Like, honestly, like, they're just a good time.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, just going back to what Nick said, you know, it's not complex. It's very simple, but the complexities are about the feelings and the emotions that brings, and all of us are and you know, whoever's out there listening, you know, watch these movies because it will elicit, you know, a beautiful response from you if you allow it to. And so, George, you have anything else to say?
No.
All right, you don't. All right.
This is 4 guys, 1 film.
Oh, no, hold on. Also, don't you know, base the movie solely on our ratings. Watch our listen to our podcast as a whole, and you'll understand why we give it such a big one, because it holds a place dear to our hearts. This is my first time seeing the entire trilogy, but I enjoyed it very thoroughly. So,
and I'm so happy that you enjoyed it, because this is one of my favorite.
I loved it. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah. I feel like I don't think this is something I would have watched completely on my own, maybe with, you know, my partner, but I don't think I would have came across it, you know, just from looking around. So,
well, you know, I hope this spreads out there, and for all the people listening to us, just again, you know, we're on Letterboxd, Twitter, Instagram,
and please comment, because we want to reply back to you guys. We want to be.
Yes, we love all the comments. You know, we love interacting with you guys, and you know, it really makes us happy.
Yeah. So I guess this is 4 guys, 1 film.
Whoa.